Okay, at 6:30, we will call the Sawyer County Board of Supervisors, February 16, 2023 meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Dale Schluter.
Here.
Jesse Betcher. Tweet Schuman.
Here.
Stacy Hassel. Jason Weaver.
Present.
Mark Helwig. Tom Duffy. Marshall Savitsky. Brian Bizinet.
Here.
Michael Maestri.
Here.
Chris Rusk. Chris Rusk.
Chris Rusk.
Okay,
He's on
John
right now.
Rickheimer. Ron Kinsley. Ron Buckholz. Ed Peters. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Jason Weaver, are you present?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay,
Oh,
thanks. And I
Jason
know
Weaver.
Mr. Betcher is excused, Madam Clerk.
Pardon?
Mr. Betcher is excused. He let
Yes.
us know he'd be gone.
And Jason Weaver is now in attendance?
He is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, certification of compliance with open meetings law, Madam Clerk.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Meeting agenda has been presented. Public comment. Anybody here that would like to approach the board? You'll have 3 minutes. Sheriff, state your name and address, sir.
Good evening, Sheriff Doug Morotek, Hayward. Mr. Chairman and fellow board members, I appreciate a minute here. I just want to share something. My name has come to light in several news media outlets as far as disproportionate issues there on the jail report that we published for public safety and the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. A couple of things I want to clarify. We did take race off there, and it's been mentioned that we took the Native American race, we took all races off there. I have maintained our programs in our jail that my predecessors established, added more programs, and I think it's important that we focus on what the real issue is in our jail. We have an unbelievable problem with addiction. And with that comes some mental health issues. I think it's important that we all work together and focus on dealing with those issues through programs and otherwise educating and training our inmates so upon their release, they can become employed and productive members of our community. The one thing that we're going to put on the jail report is the statistics that 80 to 90% of all of our inmates are unemployed. And if we can get them employed, in theory, we should be able to reduce our inmate population by 80, 90%. And if we can do that, the disproportionate statistics will not be an issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. We can't.
You're gonna keep it off the report, right?
Well, we have that data, if anybody needs that, but the intent is, and I did that because I want to redirect attention to where I think we should be looking at the real problems. It's nothing personal, and it's sure not by race. Our Native American population, utmost respect for them and their culture, and totally supportive. But you know, our inmates are people, and good people that need a little direction, like we all do at times. And I think it's important we all work as a community to try to get them and others in our communities and productive members of the community.
Thank you, Sheriff.
They're off, but you have the data. What's the issue? Who's upset that?
I think some of the,
Why should they be? Why do people want that on there? I guess.
that's a question, a good question, and I can't answer that.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, public comment.
Yep, I understand, Ms. Buckholz. Thank you. All right, is there anyone else for public comment? Alex, anybody online? Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 7. Consider approval of our board meeting minutes, January 19th, 2023. Mr. Peters, do you have any comments?
I've reviewed the board minutes and for January 19th of 23, and it may be a clarification. I believe there was a statement about ice on lakes and safety for travel on lakes. And my recollection, and as I looked it over, is basically that the point was that anybody who drives on a lake drives at their own risk. It is not there that no one for using ATVs or UTVs or snowmobiles, they have avoided using the idea that there is safe ice. Ice is always has to be considered to be
Okay, so your interpretation is
that would be
good as presented.
I think it's fine as permit.
Okay, so is that motion, Mr. Peters? Okay.
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Peters to approve as presented, second by Mr. Kinsley. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 2, February 9th, County Board Special Meeting Minutes. Motion by Mr. Kinsley to approve as presented, second by Mr. Savitsky. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 8, Economic Development, UW
Can I get
Extension,
a clarification? Was that just a late aye or was that
a late aye.
A late aye.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, number 8, Economic Development, UW Extension Committee Chair Report, Mr. Righeimer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. UW Extension was there. They hired a agricultural water culture specialist. That specialist is going to be in Burnett County. Ann Sayers, the tourist secretary, is going to be here during the Berkey. The Hayward Lakes Visitor Bureau showed us a 60-second commercial, which was pretty cool. I thought it was really neat about coming to Hayward in the winter time. It's going to run in Eau Claire, Duluth, and Minneapolis, St. Paul areas. Historical Society was present at this meeting. What I thought was really encouraging there is they have a $60,000 balance and they are self-sustaining and they weren't asking for any money, which was encouraging. Hayward Library report, they are exploring or considering exploring fine-free for overdue books. So they need to run an analysis on that and see what they might be foregoing by doing that. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Economic Development?
Yeah,
Mr. Schlier.
thank you for that report. That's, how much money does the Historical Society have?
60,000.
So they got a donation of $50,000 from a private donor. That's why they were taken off of Sawyer County's request each year.
Yeah.
So he said that they got that back in 2015, I believe. So they've not touched that. They've just been going off of fundraisers that they've been doing and a high school student did. So that's why they have that considerable amount. Otherwise, they don't have a lot of money otherwise. So.
Okay, that, I was very surprised. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, if not, we'll move on to letter B. Mr. Duffy, you want to introduce our speaker tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow members of the board. It's my pleasure to introduce Ben Popp of the American Brookaviner Organization. We've asked Ben to come tonight to talk to us about Brookie Week, which will be in the coming week. Things, ice on the lake and the snow and the many events that we've got. So Ben, the floor is yours. Charm us.
Okay. Mr. Popp, thank you, sir. Oh, thank you. All right, go
All
ahead,
right,
Mr. Ryan.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, thanks for having me. Couple things I'll give you. These are. Those are just hot off the presses. Those are participant guides, and there's unfortunately, I don't have the visitor guide as well. So one goes to the participants, one goes to everybody else around town to just give some information about where to park, when shuttle buses run. And then this one is a little bit more specific to the event itself, wave start times and the like. But at current, we're expecting about 40 to 45,000 people coming here starting this weekend. It's a record number of skiers this next year, just over 13,500, about 11,300 in the Berkey, Cordy, Prince Hoken, and then the other events, Barca, Berkey, Junior Berkey, and the like. I actually just got in from skiing. The trail held up amazingly well. We were out on the lake today, speaking of lake ice, drilling some holes, and actually where we had groomed the lake, it's off the lake, it was a lot of layers of ice and slush, but where it had groomed it, it really compacted into about 16 to 18 inches of really quite solid ice. And today we've lost probably 2 to 3 inches. Interestingly enough, a meteorologist from the Twin Cities called and said, it looks like Hayward will be getting 22 inches of snow on Thursday. I thought, okay, well, sounds good. We saw that in 2017 as well, and that didn't, of course, come to fruition. But a couple highlights, I think. Again, it's the largest Berkey that there's ever been. I'm pretty excited about that. We're also excited that CBS Sunday Morning is going to be here. So Jane Pauley and her crew will be here doing a highlight on the community. It's actually focused on how a small community in northern Wisconsin hosts the world, not so much about the ski race as much about how does a town that has 2,300 or 2,800 people on the sign end up hosting all these people. So I think that'll be quite good. They thought it takes typically 3 to 4 months until they turn that around, and then it'll be on a Sunday morning show. They'll let us know and we'll get that out. The schedule stays the same actually this year. There's not a lot of changes from when the bridge goes in and snow goes down and the like. We've been working with the town, the law enforcement here in town. Because of the super congestion, they asked that we actually have a fair amount of no parking signs in places on one side of the street. Because of the extra snow this year, when there's parking on both sides, it just gets so narrow. And so there's certain places that they'll be signing or will be signing on their behalf for no parking on one side of the streets, mostly on the sides. We've added some extra parking and shuttles out of actually Lumberjack Bowl this year. So we've encouraged all the spectator parking over at the large parking lot at Lumberjack Village, not on the bowl side, but where we park during the summer and shuttle people from there. So we're hoping that's where most of them end up. Expo will still remain over at the high school. So I think that'll remain as normal. And it's actually quite a large international field this year because now that travel's back and COVID is not quite as bad. So we're looking forward to that. So that's kind of the gist of the most of it. And actually the other thing is just to have on your radars, the day after the Berkey will announce that next year is the 50th. I mean, not that people can't do math, but the year after is the 50th. And that's going to be a huge celebration, actually. We're really going to focus on the heritage and Tony and really what it took to get the event to that point and start having events that'll lead all the way up to the event that year. We've been working with, a whole variety of everything from Lumberjack World Championships to other things. Where could we do events throughout the year that'll help highlight that the 50th is coming the following year? So that's kind of the gist of it. Again, I oftentimes I apologize to people that it does get crazy and a lot of people show up, but I think we are in the process, hopefully this year, of doing an economic impact study because it's really hard to tell. The last one we had, of course, was from way back in 2014, and a lot has changed since 2014. So we're hoping that we can get some better data. I was telling Tom earlier that one of the things that we do know that we learned from our current surveys is that over 85% of the people that come and do the race tell us that they're going to visit the community at a different season. So that's awesome. We know they're going to come back in summer, fall, mountain bike, hike, fish, ATV, the things that we do in the other seasons up here. So lastly, I think many of you probably, or maybe you don't know, powers that be in southern Wisconsin, our friends in Madison, if you will, have designated this as American Birkebeiner Week. So Secretary Sayers will be here and they'll be announcing or presenting that as this is American Birkebeiner Week in the state of Wisconsin. So we think that's pretty cool. That was from Representative Edming had presented that. So, and Senator Quinn, yeah, both together. So pretty darn cool. Yeah, so the first event actually happens on Wednesday. So there'll be about 1,000 skiers on Wednesday. That'll be a part of the open track event. So that's an untimed event that they just get to ski the course. Thursday is the busiest time in downtown because, well, not in downtown, but as a whole, it's the most turnover of events from the Barkaberki, which is the ski joring event, dogs, humans racing up and down Main Street. Then the Barnaberki, which is over 1,000 little kids. The Junior Berkey, which is about 500 middle-sized kids, if you will, middle schoolers and high schoolers. And then, which is always, they get to race up and down Main Street, which people love. The Giant Ski, which is then really a ton of fun. We were talking about the teams, 6 people. We've often heard that there might be a big challenge between Bayfield County Board and Sawyer County Board. I don't know if that ever matriculated or not, you know, for bragging rights, if you will. Friday then is the Paraberkey. So there's a lot, all the sit skier and adaptive athletes are on Friday morning. Friday afternoon, midday and afternoon is the Cordelopit skiers. That'll be about 3,000, 3,500. And then of course, along comes Saturday when the real chaos really hits town. A couple other events, all of you I think have been invited. If not, you're all formally invited right now. We have a welcome dinner that we do. It'll be up at the start line on Wednesday night. It's not really a huge dinner, but just a time to say thank you for everybody for being involved. Thursday night, we do an event over at Steakhouse, which is just a party, if you will. That's typically 400 or 500 people. There is the, and I won't remember the name at the moment, but a group from the DNR that put together a video about the Giant Ski. The Nimrods, thank you. So their whole quest is to go viral, if you will. And they did a neat little documentary on their quest to be the best giant ski team. And they're showing that at the Park Theater this Friday, as well as during Berkey Week. So that'll be kind of cool, I think. And then the last events, there's a demo that we do at the start line of the Berkey for vendors that can come check out that on Sunday morning. There's a huge volunteer dinner or thank you luncheon at the Steakhouse, which is typically 400 to 600 people that come. It's anybody that volunteered. We just looked, we have about 3,600 volunteer shifts during that week. So that's a huge, huge amount of volunteers. If you know any groups that are looking to do fundraisers, it's one of the, we do a lot of fundraising for groups, any 501c3 group that's looking to raise money that wants to come and volunteer. We pay your group as part of a fundraiser if you're trying to raise money for uniforms or a band trip or whatever that might be. Let us know. We still have a need for parking, helping at Expo. All the Expo takes place at the high school. So that's good. That's where that takes place. And again, that's on Thursday and Friday. And then that wraps up that. Typically we end up with we get 15 to 18,000 people that'll go through the high school as part of the Expo. So kind of a whole lot of stuff going on, a whole lot of chaos. Hopefully it brings a bunch of money to the community. And we know, again, it's a ton of inconveniences, but hopefully by Sunday afternoon, you know, and anecdotally, it'll be interesting to see this year. I live in Earl. And typically the traffic is almost always backed up to the community center there, or the old schoolhouse. It'll be interesting to see with the new roundabout situation and how that's all done. If it actually is any better or any worse, I don't know. But it's always nice on Sunday. We love them. They pay a lot of bills, but on Sunday, as everyone's leaving, it's sometimes kind of a big sigh to know that then town returns to normal. So that's kind of what we have in store.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Pop. Any questions for Mr. Duffy? Yeah.
Yeah. Plenty of bibs welcome for sure.
And yeah, and we'll take on Bayfield County in a tug of war.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mr. Pop. Really
You're
appreciate the update.
You bet. Thanks.
We really appreciate the Berkey, sir. All right. Moving on to number 9, zoning committee chair report. You and that, Mr. Buckholz, sir? Yep.
The zoning committee held its monthly public hearing meeting on January 20th. There was no rezone request for January. The committee approved one conditional use permit. We discussed amending the ordinance to clarify the language defining multi-dwellings and developmental resorts, postponed until we can determine the potential tax implication. Our next meeting will take place tomorrow at 8:30. So if there's no more questions, that completes the report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Any questions for zoning? All right, number 10, Public Safety Committee Chair Report, Mr. Buckholz.
Okay. I got the right month this time.
Thank you.
Thanks to Marsh there.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been brought up to my attention at some of the public safety meetings why we don't get a judge's report or the district attorney's report. Well, the DA told me there's never nothing new to report, so we just go along with it. But Judge Yackel did tell me that once he gets the new courthouse and the new judge in place, we could expect to receive reports from the judge. I read Mr. Alvarado's update on the date for potential additional expenses, and I'm not going to go into all that because he probably will. We got a written report that was provided by the clerk. Sheriff's Department report, Communication Center report. Sheriff Marotek advised that the co-sponsored a sheriff's snowmobile ride and had 11 sheriffs join the ride. All raving reviews on our trail community. A written communication report was provided by Chief Sedera. Reviewed the highlights, including the interviewing and hiring of staff. With the changes, we are still short 2 people in dispatch. Lieutenant Rapinski reviewed highlights of the report, including call volume and jail report. Lieutenant Waller highlights of the report, including showing an average daily population of 71.2 inmates. Our total bookings were down in 2022 compared to the previous 3 years. Sheriff Marotek mentioned that through research, they found 80% of the inmates are employed, which he told us today. Communication specialist report, a report was given by Mr. Kruk, reviewed the highlights of communication on areas of coverage testing clarification and system design and portable usage of the LAW-D. The outlines that reason for gaps in the radio coverage and provide options on what might be done to improve the radio coverage. Mr. Sheriff Marotek advised that they are still trying to devise plans to improve school communications at 100%. And then code enforcement. Mr. Butcher advised that he's been working on local business to get permits to operate. The county will be having a vaccine clinic on March 24th in Winter and March 25th in Hayward. That's the rabies clinic. And emergency management medical examiner report was provided by Mrs. Rapinski, advised that she is closing out grants and continues on working on gathering storm data. She attended a statewide tabletop exercise where Mass continues to work on gathering storm damage data. And she attended a statewide tabletop exercise Mass for casualty and fatality events, is working with our public health department to create a new plan. So that ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Any questions at all for public safety?
Could you clarify, you had stated 80% were employed. Did you mean unemployed? Just for the record, so that, okay.
Employed, and I think you meant unemployed.
Yes, unemployed, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Good catch. All right, thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Moving on to number 11, Public Works Committee Chair Report, Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met last week, and the maintenance, I'd like to, Tim Hagberg's in charge of the maintenance, and it's just amazing how many things he's connected to that keeps our county going, and I really appreciate the work he does. You know, he keeps the building clean, he keeps his employees busy, and he's always dealing with the second courthouse stuff that's coming up every day. So they do a good job. With airport, there's communication going on regarding the runway rehabilitation. Potentially someone might be coming forward to help us out with some funding on that. We've had a lot of problems with cleaning the runway this year because our machine's been broke down, but presently they have it working. So it's a never ending battle. And our highway commissioner has not been replaced yet. And Mr. Brad Vicey is filling in for us. We've done interviews for the County Road CC Bridge over by the landing. We have a project coming up on Highway B right here in the city. And there's also going to be a replacement of a bridge over by Blueberry. The UTV ordinance is still not approved. There's some issues that need to be tried to work out, and they have not been worked out yet. So we'll continue to try to do that. And we have courthouse remodel. We had a special meeting to take care of some funds for us. We met again yesterday, and the big thing yesterday was the AV equipment for the new courtroom. But after talking to Andy today, it seems like we got some of that worked out. So we should be moving into the new courtroom by the first part of April, like April 10th is a tentative plan. Subject to change, but we're moving forward.
Good.
Questions, concerns? Thank you.
I have a question.
Good. Yes, sir, Mr. Buckles.
Mr. Kinsley, I've been asked, is the highway department still looking for applicants
Just about always. I mean, for like,
for
truck
like
driver.
get a appointment for the highway department?
Well, we're looking for, right, presently, we're looking for a commissioner, and I think all the other positions currently are filled.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
I think there are some people coming up on term.
There's gonna be a group over the next 3 to 5 years. We're gonna lose about 10 people, so there's gonna be a lot of openings coming.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kinsley. All right, moving on then. Number 12, Land, Water, Forest Resource Committee Chair Report. Who's handling that tonight? Mr. Helwig, turn your light on, sir. Thank you.
Okay, the meeting was held, our monthly Land and Water Forest Resources meeting on Wednesday, February 8th. Committee approved the fair market value minimum bid list of a number of foreclosed properties to be sold or auctioned this spring. Survey crews have been encountering difficulties traversing properties because of the deep snow. Excuse me. Attempting to reconfirm reservation boundary lines by late spring. Repairs are continuing on the Price and Upper Brunet dams. They're hoping to be complete by spring thaw. The Fish Trap Dam is likely to be the next in need of repair. The committee voted to approve 12 wildlife damage claims. These are reimbursed through state budgets and not from the county. Unless Mr.
Okay, and Mr. Alvarado, we have an action item here, sir.
Yeah, actually, it's on there for reference.
Oh, okay.
But maybe with a comment that by the board policies, you've delegated the responsibility for the tax deed lands. The treasurer coordinates it, but the responsibility to set the minimum bid and approve the sales is with the Land, Water, Forestry Committee. That's been delegated. I don't know what past history is of this coming to the board, but I have a comment in my administrator's report that we've talked with the treasurer and land records about tightening up our policies a little bit on this subject, just because by statute you can take tax delinquent properties after 3 years. Sawyer County's practice has been to do it after 5 years. I'm not sure why, but I think what we'll be coming back with is a policy that outlines the responsibilities of the committee and the treasurer. And these are the in rem, these have been taken, they can go up for sale. They have to be published at market prices and then sold. We have a separate list of direct sales, the ones that have been advertised and are no longer, they've been put for sale once. Some policy that over a period of time, we need to start reducing the prices on those because it doesn't do us any good to hang on to them. Just a matter of reviewing that. So this is on here for reference though. This sale will be proceeding probably in the spring. The treasurer talked to the committee also about going away from the bid process, sealed bids, to putting them on an auction website, which is popular now with a number of counties. That way you can upload all of your parcel maps, aerial photos, and then people can see a price, and all the cost of selling the property is incurred by the buyer through the bid fees on the auction site.
Okay, so Mr. Helwig, the Land Water Forest Committee then approved all these sales and their minimum bid price, correct? To go to auction this spring. Okay, so we really don't need to do it here.
I don't think so. No.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Helwig. Any questions for Land Water Forestry? Anybody online, Alex? If not, then we'll move on to number 13, Health and Human Services Board Chair Report. Mr. Schleter, sir.
Thank you. Sauter County Health and Human Services Board met on the 6th of this month. We had Ms. Gouget give this the tribal update of activities out there. The COVID-19 appears to be in some sort of a lull out there, and they're watching that very carefully. Pretty much the same thing that our public nurse told us later in the meeting. Let's see, they're working on hiring a new director for the new health center, and that the current Elder Wellness Center is going to, I got that right, is going to remain open until the new center is
Correct.
in place. There was some confusion about that. Basically, what it comes down to is don't believe everything you hear on the internet. Okay. The groundbreakings this spring. Let's see. I wish I had better handwriting. Okay. Okay. Oh, Senior Resource Center, typically 2,500 meals a month, and that was the same thing for last month. We are working on trying to find ways to reduce our expenses. We met with a representative from Guar and some other people, significantly the director of the Burnett Polk County Resource Center. And apparently our cost for producing meals averages $10.50. And we've been told that's kind of on the high side. So we're going to look into other possibilities, especially with the director from Burnett County, who is hovering more around 10. But if we can get a handle on some different types of purchasing, we're working on it. The rep did tell us that we went over all of the options we could think of, centrally locating a kitchen in the county, buying an existing building that could be used somewhere else in the county. He was very nice about it, but he kindly explained to us why none of those were really going to reduce our costs. Okay. So we're still on that. Senior Resource Center. The budget report there, we've heard from all of the from Paul Grahovic, the director from all of the departments. The budget is, we don't know for sure yet because there are still bills coming in from 2022, but tentatively, cross your fingers, we could come in under budget. So hopefully it's that. If it looks like the worst we might have is a little bit over budget. So, and that concludes the report.
Good to know. Thank you, Mr. Schluter. Anything for Health and Human Services? Nobody online? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schluter. All right, moving on to number 14, Finance Committee Chair Report. Mr. Kinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The treasurer reported that they've collecting taxes through February 1st is done. The 2022 delinquent tax notices will be going out in the February 1st to March. She talked about the land sales, which Mr. Helwig talked about a little bit. And we had some property in the village of Radisson that we had a bid to take the building down. We asked him to get another bid if he could. And he got a second bid, and it's extremely higher than the first bid. But he told me that he thinks a third bid's coming in pretty soon, so we'll wait a little bit and see what happens with that. Mr. Markren does a nice job of putting together. He put together the budget updates of the highway and health and human services and said they look pretty good. They should be coming in real close to on their budget to end out the year 2022. Capital improvements was talked about, and everything seems to be going forward with that. We talked about the attorney fees and expenditures for 2022. And we also learned that we get some 50% grants for funding some of that. We had an investment review with the money that we are presently holding, and he brought forward 3 options for us how to invest that money until we have to spend it out. And the committee was able to choose one that we thought would help the county out. We talked briefly about the ARPA funds, the opioid funds. And that concludes my report, and someone has a question.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Kinsley. Anything for the Finance Committee? If not, thank you, Mr. Kinsley. Moving on to number 15, County Administrator's Report. Mr. Alvarado, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. I want to follow up on Mr. Kinsley's comment. The property in Radisson that we have the demolition bid for is on our direct sale list, and with a bargain price of $1 right now. It's premium property in downtown Radisson. Great view. So if anybody looking to be a developer, there's a great opportunity there. Just running through my report, courthouse renovation. We have $5.5 million of work completed, 3.1 remaining. That's the financial update. The contingency fund has taken a significant hit in the last month. Part of that is because a lot of the, what we call RFIs, requests for information and change orders were processed last month. So we're down to 45,839. which I shared with you last month, which was the reason that we had to have a discussion about these additional items and the funding for those. Those will be incorporated. What will happen now is there'll be a change order. The project costs will go up to account for those items, which are in process now. Like we had mentioned last week, the HVAC and electrical equipment is delaying the transition. We still expect at this point that they'll be here in mid-March so they can be installed and keep us on time on our new timeline of a turnover date of about April 1st. And then we'll transition to have everything up and running hopefully by April 10th. Like Mr. Kinsley indicated yesterday, we had some concerns because we were informed that some of our IT AV equipment is on back order, some components of the new courtroom system. And those are still on back order, won't be here until August, it sounds like sometime in Q3. But I believe based on some additional discussion with our vendor and our IT department, they have a workaround or a temporary solution in place so that we don't have to change our timelines. Hopefully Alex is behind me nodding his head that this is all good, taken care of, and we'll stay on track. Kind of the fallout from having to move our dates is the court has had to adjust their schedules to accommodate the later turnover. The furniture for the new facility, new space is arriving next week because we thought we'd be moving in relatively soon. So we have to store that. Those items, you can smell the day the work happened though, the polished floor is being stained. So I think things are coming together. It's just these significant items, which HVAC and electrical that are going to be delaying us a little bit. But and I should say, as things as we get closer to reality of moving, concerns and questions come up, and we're addressing those on a as needed basis. Personnel, union negotiations. We have received a response from the union in the last couple of weeks. The negotiating committee met before this meeting, and we'll be continuing our meeting to discuss a response. So that process is moving, albeit slowly. my own opinion, hiring has improved. We're seeing some more applications. I think there are some areas of the economy that are slowing, so we expect to see that continue to improve from what we have been experiencing. We're still slow to fill some positions in the jail, but we have new hires there and in dispatch, which we'll continue to recruit for. We are recruiting for the highway commissioner. We have reopened that. We had interviews scheduled, but had a candidate drop out. So we reopened that process. Still recruiting for EMS positions and recruiting for social worker, CSP caseworkers. That I want to point out is very significant right now. We had 2 open positions that we had been recruiting for. And unfortunately, we received 2 additional resignations this week that will be done in a couple of weeks. We were able to hire 1 LTE individual who's retired from another county that's doing some hours for us. But at this point, we're down to that person and our supervisor in the next couple of weeks. So we have some meetings scheduled with the state. We're talking to other counties about how to fill in the gaps until we can generate some hires in that area. We received responses to our RFP for an employee benefits consultant. We're reviewing those now and have interviews scheduled with a couple of those firms next week. Corp Counsel, nothing really new there, still working on the same items. We do have County Mutual involved in a couple of cases of potential liability. The sheriff, there's another lawsuit that came up today that we were served with that we have to pass along to our insurance company. Unfortunately, those things happen. They're kind of the part of everyday business. In addition to those, the county clerk can tell you that we're getting fairly inundated with open records requests for contracts and payroll information, generally from people who are looking to use that information to sell for their purposes, but it does take a time for us to fulfill those requests. Muni code, the first update is in process from the items that were not included in the initial publication. That should happen here in the first quarter. CJCC will have some updates to their bylaws that have been improved there, which will go to public safety and then come to the board next month. And then they're focusing still on the opioid funding and the treatment court startup. Opioid settlement, we still have about the 121,000 in the bank here. There is no new details on the securitization. That's the idea of selling our settlement and receiving a lump sum up front. That has cooled off because it appears they're working through some legal issues that some places are, some parties to the lawsuit, if they were to sell their settlement, and part of that, they may not make the threshold that I think it's 85% of the funds have to be spent on items identified in the settlement agreement. And the cost of the cost of securitization would exceed that 15% that does not have to be used for that. So that is not currently on the table as far as I know. We haven't received any more information on that. What has happened though is that there has been an additional settlement. These prior the settlements were with the distributors. This settlement that's forthcoming is with the retailers. That'd be like Walgreens, Walmart, CVS. So we just received notice that the paperwork is coming, and you'll have that at the March board meeting. We don't have specific numbers on how much the additional funds for the county will be. My best guess, it'll be about 200,000. That might be a little low. The prior settlement was 480,000. So it'll be roughly in the ballpark of half of what we received before. And it will be over a period of years, but we don't know how many years at this point. And we are working with public health on a framework and a budget to use those funds to address the overdose issue and opioid problem in the county. No office moves in the courthouse that I had brought up before. The sheriff was able to accommodate Justice Point with some space, so it doesn't appear we need to shuffle any offices in the building right now. Policy items, I mentioned the tax deed land, probably is the next one we'll be working on. Child support MOU has been a work progress, or been working on that for 6 months. I think the attorneys in the state have something worked out for us to bring back in March. The 161 agreement, I believe it's on the tribes side and reviewing that. And then we have kind of stalled on the UTV ordinance, and we'll be picking that back up. The committee and the LCO are talking about doing something jointly to try to get some consistency in the ordinances that we have and they have and the towns have. I think Mr. Kinsley gave you the update on the airport. We did apply for some discretionary federal funds for the runway project to try to bring that project back up. It was scheduled for 24, has been pushed off to 25 due to lack of funding. So we were trying to find funds now to keep it on the original 2024 schedule. Broadband, you'll hear a little bit more about that. That's coming back out. There is a current round of PSC grant applications that are due on the 22nd. We've already provided a letter of support to BevCom, and we've heard from Charter. BevCom is down in the Radisson area. They're submitting an application, and Charter is submitting an application for the towns of Spider Lake, Round Lake, and Bass Lake. I think they have territory. Talking with the Economic Development Committee, we're just going to support all applications and let the PSC decide who they want to fund at this point. And then there is federal funding coming through the state for what they call the BEAD program. They'll be planning for broadband, and we will be receiving an allocation of that. At this point, we don't know how much, but Sawyer County, I think all counties will be receiving a portion of the grant. And we've emergency declaration update. Just one thing I want to point out is that Mr. Pinsky has submitted our information. At this point, we had hoped to get trail funding to the trail cleanup costs. At this point, they're not being included. The snowmobile trail funds are being addressed through the DNR, but we don't have any, we're not making any headway on getting any funds for the cleanup of our silent sports trails like the Berkey Trail, even though it was on county land. So we're going to continue to pursue that. A county ambassador program is something through Wisconsin Counties Association. I'm a part of that. So we spent a day in January meeting with our legislators. Top 4 items I think are very important to Sawyer County, as they are most counties, but maybe even more important to us. So this was all timed with the budget discussions that are happening now. But we've talked about additional or maintaining general transportation aids, reforming local revenue and additional shared revenue for the county, for counties. So you already heard the governor's proposal last night about committing 1 penny or 20% of the sales tax in the state to local governments, which would increase our funding. And then he's also proposing in his budget that counties would be able to go to referendum for an additional 0.5% sales tax to fund county operations. I expect we'll see similar proposals from the legislature. There's been a local revenue committee working there with the counties association. So the good thing is that's probably the #1 priority on in the executive branch and in the legislative. So we should see some relief there. Mental health funding has been included on both sides. And then we also talked about increasing the victim witness coordinators, reimbursement from the state. Initially, that was supposed to be 90% funded by the state. At this point, they're only funding 40% of our costs. So those are things that affect our levy every year. Last item, tribal land taxation changes. We've had some discussion in committees in this. That was the appellate court decision that land owned by a tribe or tribal members that was or is taxable or is on the reservation and is currently being taxed is tax exempt. So we've made some, we don't think it's a huge issue here. We believe we have 2 townships where there's going to be some parcels coming off the tax roll, and that's primarily Town of Hayward and Town of Bass Lake at this point. We do have parcel lists now for those, so they're going through and assessing what the dollar value of that switch will be. In Bayfield and Ashland County, who we were working with on this issue, there are some significant issues because they have some townships where 85% of the land is going to be moving off the tax roll. So what happens last year is that the state assigns an assessed or a value to those towns to assess the taxes. Well, that value didn't change. So when those properties came off the tax roll, the total value of the township shifted to the privately owned parcels. So that's a big shift in tax dollars. So as part of the budget discussion, those counties with us in a more of a supporting role have asked for some relief from the state, and that was included in the governor's budget to replace lost revenue for local governments out of the state budget on a next year we get full replacement, and then every year after for 10 years it would go down by 10%. So it's not a huge issue for us, but it is an issue. So that's just something we'll keep you updated on moving ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, good job. So Mr. Alvarado, the mental health funding out of county placements, is that, you see something coming in that?
Yes, both the legislature and the governor are talking about it. But yes, that's well, I think the governor's declared this the year of mental health or something along those lines. So we do expect to see some additional funding in those programs.
Good. Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Alvarado? If not, anything, correspondence, reports from conferences, meetings? Anything, anybody online, Alex? Okay, if not, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.